The man was pulling nails out of a coffin, trying to pry open his mother's casket and hide the corpse of the person he accidentally killed inside. His goal was to make it all look like a seamless cover-up, the perfect way to hide a body. However, things were far from as simple as he imagined. The protagonist was a police officer who had just been exposed for corruption and bribery. The Internal Affairs Division was already on their way to his office for a surprise inspection. The protagonist panicked and hurried back to his office, but accidentally hit a pedestrian on the way. When he got out to check, he found the person was already dead. Before he could react, a police car was approaching from ahead. The protagonist quickly hid the body under his car. Luckily, the police car turned at the intersection without noticing him. But the protagonist knew he would still leave traces. So he put the body in the trunk, intending to find a secluded place to bury it. However, shortly after driving, he encountered a traffic cop checking vehicles. Turning back now would arouse suspicion, so he had to keep driving despite his nerves. He originally thought his police identity would let him pass the check easily, but he forgot to bring his police ID. The traffic cop noticed an obvious crack on his car window and immediately asked him to get out for an inspection. The protagonist had no choice but to get out and cooperate. The traffic cop began verifying his identity information. At the same time, another cop was checking the trunk. The protagonist panicked and directly intervened, but was subdued by the cop. Just then, a message came over the radio confirming the protagonist's police identity. The protagonist was furious and, using his identity, gave the traffic cops a harsh scolding. After driving away, the protagonist continued looking for a place to bury the body, but couldn't find a suitable spot. He had no choice but to return home. Today was his mother's funeral. Back home, a colleague found him and told him Internal Affairs had discovered a large amount of cash in his office. The facts of his corruption were exposed. Internal Affairs personnel were rushing to his house. He felt a surge of panic because the body was still hidden in the trunk. In his panic, the protagonist accidentally injured his hand, but unexpectedly discovered a solution. He immediately ran out, bought a bunch of balloons, and secretly stuffed money to the priest to buy himself some time to say goodbye to his mother. Now, only he and his deceased mother remained here. The protagonist slowly released the balloons in his hand, blocking the surveillance camera's view. Then he climbed to the air duct, opened the grate, and inside was a remote control toy he had just thrown in from the outside duct. A rope was tied to the toy, with the other end tied to the corpse. The protagonist started the switch, and the toy began to move, but after only 2 steps, it stopped and emitted a piercing sound. At this point, the protagonist was beyond caring. Taking advantage of this time, he continued removing nails from the coffin. He originally thought everything was going smoothly, but just as he was about to finish, a nurse was attracted by the toy's sound. She walked to the door, heard the sound of pulling nails, and immediately called security. The guards then notified the surveillance room. Finally, the protagonist got the toy and successfully stuffed the body into the coffin. Everything seemed to have returned to normal, but just as he hammered in the last nail, suddenly, a phone rang from inside the coffin.